Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'direi Torah.
Amen.
Okay, so what you're seeing, I believe, is a page from my, as you can see from on my, let's see what I can do here. Yes. Okay. In preparing for today, I actually had to go through quite a bit of different material. He quotes a lot of resources and sages and along the centuries, and that was one of them, Rabbi Akiva Eiger. And I wanted to, I looked them up on the website. This is the great thing about the age of information. And specifically in this case, I want to give credit to Wikipedia. And it just gives you a sense of the scholarship, the level of scholarship through the ages involved in trying to, I think, fulfill the commandment of you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And, you know, really meaning what we say is a biggie, a biggie. So let's take a look here. This is where we were. We just did the upper line, yes, the last time we met, and I didn't get to do the Torah T'mimah on that. So we'll go back over this. This is this amazing line where Abraham has his name changed from Avram to Avraham. It precedes or it's goes along with his Brit Milah, with his circumcision, and the covenant of the circumcision. And one of the things that God says in changing his name is that his name's going to be it means of Hamon Goyim. That prior to that, his name meant father of Aram, but now his name is going to be father of a multitude of nations. And what's been interesting as we've done the Torah T'mimah is it's sort of looked at the halachic implications of the fact that Abraham is the patriarch of many nations. And what exactly does that mean? What exactly are those implications of? So what's the significance of it? And we've done a little bit, and this is one of those elements here, right? Of Hamon Goyim. So here's the thing. Part of what it means is that if someone accepts Abraham as his patriarch, regardless of whether he is a born Israelite, that has tremendous significance. And that is, in a sense, a fulfillment of this statement, that in a sense it's a prophecy, but it also, as I said, has sort of Jewishly legal implications. So here goes. Here's one of those implications. Hanoder mi Israel. If someone takes an oath, they make an oath. Do you need me to stop a second? Okay, only I'm sensitive to hearing other sounds, and I don't want to leave out a question if someone has a question. All right. So one who takes an oath not to derive any benefit from a certain Jew, asur gam begerim, he is also then, by implication, not to derive any benefit. He is forbidden to take any benefit from converts, from proselytes. And that's an interesting, chiddush. So I think we need to say here that if he swears, if this Jewish person, this Israelite, swears, and whether it occurs to a non-Israelite, I don't know. It just says the one who swears not to derive any benefit from an Israelite is forbidden also from deriving any benefit from someone who's a proselyte. Why? And here is the piece. Dichtiv ki av hamon goyim netatecha, because I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. And now we understand what it means here. The idea is that many people will come to subscribe to Abraham's belief and his beliefs and become, in a sense, by extension, God believers, etc. Tosefta, this is found in the Tosefta. It's not in the Talmud, but it's in the Tosefta, Tractate Nidarim, which deals with oaths. So, that's why we're talking about Nidarim, vows. And it's in Pei Bet, means Perek Bet, chapter 2. Right. Now, let's get into this. Iyen masha katuv bedrasha hakodmet. So he says, you may want to look and see what was mentioned in the earlier little thing, this one right here, right? Where he talked about, there it talks about a proselyte bringing bikurim, bringing first fruits to the temple and making that declaration. That declaration includes the land you promised. It's a declaration to God. You promised to my ancestors or our ancestors, and of course, technically speaking, if he's a proselyte, Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Jacob, etc., aren't his ancestors. But nevertheless, this is based on the same idea of Lechol HaGoyim, right? And that's in the Yerushalmi and Bikurim. So that's what he's sort of referring to. The fact that the idea that even though a person may not be born Jewish, that nevertheless this statement that God made to Abraham has this kind of implication. So that's that part here. Ve'ien beturei zahav leyurei de'ah. So this is where I had to start getting into doing a little bit of research in the hopes of adding to your enjoyment of this. So Turei Zahav is the name of a major commentator of the Shulchan Aruch. Yorei Deah is the second of the four major sections of the Shulchan Aruch. For those of you who don't know what the Shulchan Aruch is, the Shulchan Aruch is essentially an arrangement of Jewish law as derived from the Talmuds for the most part, and it was written by Jacob ben Asher in an attempt to try and summarize and put down, clarify, etc., the actual practice of Judaism, etc. Whether Jacob ben Asher intended it as a law book, I think is up for discussion. I think he meant it as a scholarly work. However, the Yoreh Deah, together with major interpreters like the Turei Zahav, okay, has of course become the foundation of Ashkenazic Jewish practice. Incidentally, Jacob ben Asher himself was a Sephardi Jew. He was not an Ashkenazic Jew, and it took the Ramah, Moshe Isserles, who added glosses, in other words, inserts into the Shulchan Aruch to the original document in order to bring it within the realm of Ashkenazic practice. So if you want to know what the law is, it isn't a matter of just going to the Shulchan Aruch with Moshe Isserles and looking it up. It is far more complex than that. Possibly the closest we can come to saying, a resource that you could use, is called the Mishnah Brura, and that is a book that involves the commentaries of the person, forgive me, the Chafetz Chaim, right? His name is Chafetz Chaim, and he is the one who wrote the commentary and the discussions and did the research, etc., to bring it as close to actual practice as possible. It doesn't end there. It's not, you don't simply go to a book and become a judge. It doesn't work that way. At any rate, I know I'm going into this in detail, but I really think it's worth it, and I want to now look and see if I can show you. Let me see if I can find for you Turei Zahav and who the author of that was. Let's see what I can find here. 1 second here. Let's go here. Okay, and let's see if let's go here. You can see this. Okay, this is not who we're looking at, right? Let's take a look. Is this who we're talking about? I sure hope I still have it. Yep, there we are. That's correct. So his name, and look at his years, right? Around the years 1586 to 1620, I'm going to say, right? Name was David Halevi Siegel. He's also known as the Turei Zahav, which is abbreviated to the Taz. You saw that, right? Of his significant halachic commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, was one of the greatest Polish rabbinic authorities. And here's a illustration of him of some kind. Let's see. I'm looking to see if it was, yeah, well, the early 1900s. Did he actually look like this? I do not know, right? But still, uh, the reason I'm doing this is I wanted to give you some sense, as I said before, of the incredible brilliance, the number of brilliant people who were involved and engaged in the study of Judaism. And again, I think it all basically is the essence of it all is this desire to perform the divine will. To take that notion of the divine will, not as a general concept, but to break it down, to deconstruct it, and to say, what exactly is it that an Israelite, a descendant of Jews, a person who wants to actually practice Judaism, actually has to do? How do you live your life? Right. So let's just take a look at this. Right. This is another important person, Joel Sirkis, also his name is at least his notes are found on the every page of the Talmud. The Talmud, of course, the Torah T'mimah is found on the Shulchan Aruch. Right, here we go. Just a little bit. After residing with his father-in-law and continuing his Torah studies for several years, Siegel and his family moved to Krakow. He was then appointed chief rabbi of Lech. Portlich, there's the picture of it, near Rava, where he lived in, look at this, great poverty. Later he went to Poznan, where he remained for several years. Just telling you a little bit about his, okay, right? He wrote a commentary on Joseph Kara's Shulchan Aruch, which he published in Lublin in 1646. This is what he's referring to. Okay, this is what Torah T'mimah is referring to. And again, just to consider yourself really knowledgeable, you have to know this stuff, right? And I'm going to assume that Torah T'mimah has studied a good deal of the Torah Zahav in the course of his own personal studies. So let me go back now, if I may. Let's see if this will work. This will take me to the let's see, hopefully I can get back to this. No, there we are. All right, so let's take a look, right? He says, Yein b'turei zahav lo yorei dea siman. So this is the reference, right? And the yorei dea is divided into sections or paragraphs that each deal with elements of a particular law, and it breaks them down, and then those are then subsections, right? So it's section 217, Seif Katan, which means subparagraph 35. So at least there are 35 subparagraphs to this particular, I guess I could call it a chapter, right? And he says, Katav shelo nimsa makor ledin zeh. He says there, the Torah Zahav says, there is no source for this particular law. The law that if a person says they will not derive any benefit from an Israelite, they're not allowed to derive benefit from a non-Jew. From a proselyte. Let me see what I can do here. I may need to do another share on this. So give me a moment. I wanted to show you a page of the Shulchan Aruch. So let me see if I can do that for you. One moment, please. 1 second. Let's see if I have it open. There we are. All right. I don't know if I could do this. No. Okay. I'm going to have to do it this way. All right. I'm going to share this now. Okay. Let's see what I can do. Where's my share? Hello. 1 moment. There we go. Let's see if I can do, okay, let's just do this. I'm going to see if I can do this and this. Okay, let's just see what I can do here. Okay, so that's not what we want. Let's see if this is it. Is it? Nope, that's not what we want, that's for sure. Let's see what I can do here. Let me see. 1 second, please. Oh, do you see it now, by the way? No, you don't, do you? Do you see a different page? Let somebody tell me. Can you
Yep.
unmute a second?
Yep.
Do you see a different page?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so this is a page from the Shulchan Aruch. You see, Yoreh De'ah, and I'm referring to this is chapter, right? 217, and he mentions this major section that has to do with the laws of vows. And here is good old Torah Zahav. There it is, right there. Do you see? There's a lovely expression that they use for these. So here's the commentary, right? This is the Moshe Isserlis's glosses, I believe, right here. This is the original Shulchan Aruch. Here is another major commentary on the law, Siftei Kohen. And look at this. We've got Be'er HaGolah here. They're all doing different kinds of things. Knesset Hagadolah, Chidushay. And this is Rabbi Akiva Eiger, by the way, who's mentioned there, right? And this is Biur HaGra, which means the Gra is the Elijah of Vilna, the Vilna Gaon, right, on there, and then it's Gion Rosh. Look at this, right? All these different people commenting. Now, as I said, there's a lovely expression. So this is the king, right? Or the general. And these people are referred to as the Nosei Kalim, meaning the arms bearers, the ones who carry the vessels, carry the arms to this here. You have to have both. So this is what he's referring to. This is what Torah T'mimah is referring to, right? And here it is. Let's take a look at it in the Shulchan Aruch, and I'll try and make it a little bit bigger for you. How's that, right? Nadar mibnei. Let's see if this is the right one. Okay, yeah. This is interesting, though. It's a little bit different than what he said, but let me make sure I actually have the correct statement here. He says, right there it is. Okay, let's say lonim sa quality. Okay, so he's saying the din, just to be careful about this, right? One who deprives not to derive benefit from an Israelite. Right? Let me go through see if I can. Here we go. We're back in the Shulchan Aruch, right? I trust you see it. Trust you see it. But anyway, this again. I just want to be certain. He said, yeah, no, Lamed Hay. Okay, so I have to go to Lamed Hay. Forgive me. I may be in trouble here. I don't know why I had M. That's weird. Let's see. Oh, no, that's his. It says Sif Katan Lamed Hay. This is him, right? This is Lamed Hay. He says, Uvagerim. And with regards to, so here is the law in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, we're good. Here's the law in the Shulchan Aruch. Nadar mibnei Noach, if he swore he would not benefit from a bnei Noach, right? I think this simply means a non-Jew. Asur be'omot haolam. If he made such a statement, he'd never benefit from a descendant of Noah. He is forbidden amongst any nations of the world, umutar b'Yisrael, but he's allowed to benefit from an Israelite. Nadar mizera Avraham, if he swore that he would not benefit from the seed of Abraham, asur b'Yisrael, he's then forbidden to benefit from an Israelite, uva gerim, and also from proselytes. Umutar be'umot olam, but he's allowed to benefit from non-Jews. And then let's see, afilu bivnei Yishmael ve'esav, and he says this also refers, when it says non-Jews, it's referring to Muslims, children of Israel, of Yishmael, and Esau would mean Christians. So the reason he has to mention this, of course, is because we know the relationship that Christians and Muslims have towards Judaism, that they share some essential beliefs. But at least in the Shulchan Aruch, and remember, this is unrefined, this is straightforward Shulchan Aruch. And now let's take, and here's the footnote to Torah Zahav. And that's here. Uva Gerim. This is, he says, and this person is not allowed. This is the point, right? This is the law, the halacha that Torah T'mimah was referring to. right? He was saying, if you swear you will not benefit from an Israelite, you're not allowed to benefit from someone who became Jewish, right? Right. So uvagerim. So he said, and this is exactly what Torah T'mimah says. Lo nimtza lazeh makor. He says Torah Zahav is saying there is no source for this law. But it would appear the alif that he learns this law, right? He derives this law. Midem demimatzinu leinyan birka. Let's make sure birkat okay, that it's got to do with a blessing, a benediction, right? A benediction. She'ager yachol lomar, that he learned it from the idea of benedictions, because a proselyte, a convert, Yachol Lomar, is allowed to say, he's able to say, Elohei Avotenu, right? He's allowed to say, the God of my fathers, my patriarchs. And again, we've got this idea, right? They are not actually when he was born, when this person was born, these were not his patriarchs, but he's allowed to say it once he became a Jew. Shneimar, and here we go, look at this. Shneimar ki av hamon goyim netaticha, because it says, that's the reason he's allowed to say this, is it says, I made you a father of a multitude of nations. Kamo shekatvu Tosafot, right? And again, he's referring to his, scholarship is when you cite your sources, right? He's saying you find this in the Tosafot, and I've explained it, but the Tosafot are found on the Talmud, on the pages of the Babylonian Talmud, on every page, and their discussion of the laws mentioned. The Perek in the chapter Hasfina, it's called Hasfina, Daf Pei, that's the name of the chapter, Daf Pei Aleph, on page 81. 81b. The two dots usually mean B. One dot would mean 81a, two dots would mean 81b. So there it is. We just took a look at it. Right, so let's see something here. Let me see if I can go back to Torah T'mimah. Forgive me. Sorry, let's see what I can do here. Okay. Are we back in Torah T'mimah? You have to tell me. It looks to me as we are, but I cannot be certain. Okay, so that's here, right?
Yeah, we're back.
Thank you. Uvechidushe hagaon. Okay, here we go. Now he's mentioning another one. He says, and in the novella, meaning chidushim are essentially novel laws, new laws that are based on precedents, where they wrote very often. Here's what I think generates it. It isn't simply an intellectual exercise. What happens is, if I am correct, and the very foundation of the oral Torah, right, is circumstances alter cases. It is because the oral Torah is an attempt to take the written Torah, which you could say metaphorically is in heaven, and bring it down to earth. This is at least as best based on my limited knowledge, is something incredibly powerful about Judaism, is saying, we can have wonderful spiritual ideas, but how do you actually implement them in your life? How do you actually make them part of what's going on in the world? And we know that life throws at us all kinds of curveballs and things, and those curveballs have to somehow be caught up by Jewish law, if I may try and push my metaphor, and be applied properly, so that ultimately we are always loving God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might. And what I'm sharing with you now is just the degree to which this is not simply an idealistic concept. This is an attempt to actually implement it. So that's why we have so much work done, right? So Akiva Eiger, right? So he wrote in his study of halacha, of Jewish law, he probably was looking at unique situations where the Jewish law would impinge, because it actually does. It does affect every element of our existence, right? Katav, he wrote, Dechein mashma barosh beninanim. He says actually that the Rosh is another sage, right? Another scholar, brilliant scholar in Nidarim, in the tractate Nidarim. So please notice, of course, the Tosefta is the Tosefta of Nidarim, the tractate Nidarim. And so where do we find the Rosh? This is Rabbeinu Asher ben Yechiel. This is an abbreviation of his name. He's known as the Rosh. Rosh, of course, you know, means head, right? And he is found at the back of Babylonian Talmuds. At the end of the Babylonian tractate, at the end of the tractate, you will find the Rosh, right? Again, deep uh, uh, discussions and examination of Jewish law in Nidarim. Davar Pella, and this is Torah T'mimah, of course, saying, and it's an amazing thing. Davar Pelahu, Shemefurash din zeh b'tosefta. That in fact, how could the Torah Zahav say that there's no source for this when it's stated explicitly in the Tosefta? We just quoted it. V'yein b'tosafot Baba Batra, and he says, check out the Tosafot for Baba Batra, a whole different tractate, right? Pei Aleph, page 81. Deger yachol levarech birkat hamazon, that a person who is converted, a ger is a convert, right? Is permitted to bless birkat hamazon, the grace of the meals, ulehit palel, and to pray, velomar, and in other words, and in these particular prayers, we find the expression Elohei Avotenu, the God of our fathers. Mitam drashazo, on the basis of this particular drash. In other words, that it's of hamon goyim, and we understand it on the basis of that statement in Tosefta Nedarim. Ki av hamon goyim netaticha, right? That is the interpretation of a patriarch, right? A father of a multitude of nations. I have set you, I've made you. Shehu av lachol ha'olam. Well, this is interesting now. He says, in other words, he's a patriarch to the entire world, to the population of the entire world. But as I tried to explain, it sort of goes both ways, right? It isn't simply that, it is that whoever accepts Abraham as their patriarch, in other words. So this I think is an interesting statement when he says, because there's some other stuff. If in fact it didn't depend on that, then what we read in the Taz wouldn't make, or in the Shulchan Aruch wouldn't make sense. V'yein od, and look further. Masha katuv be'inyan zeh, regarding this particular whole subject, be'parshat Bo, right? In the Parsha of Bo, that's a Parsha in the book of Exodus. It's the Parsha that deals with the Pesach and the 10th plague, right? The Pasuk, there's a verse there that says, V'amartem, and you shall say, Zevach Pesach. This is a offering of Pesach, ube Parshat Bahalotcha, and another Parsha Bahalotcha in the book of Numbers, the pasuk regarding the verse Vayomer Moshe LeChovav ben Reuel, that Moses said to Chovav son of Reuel, that's another name for Jethro. Uveresh Perek Tavo, at the beginning in the book of Deuteronomy, Ki Tavo Be'inyan Bikurim, regarding the matter of Bikurim. Remember, we talked a little bit about that. That's where the law is about the first fruits. Vekan ein hamakom gorim la'arich, but in this particular place, it is not, we do not need to go any further into this. So let me see what I can do now to just show you a little bit of the other things. So we mentioned Akiva Eiger. Here's Akiva Eiger, right? Citra. And he's 1761 to 1837. So compared to the dates of Turei Zahav, right? Halachik, one of the greatest Talmudic scholars of modern times. So he's considered in modern times, right? In the years 1761 to 1837, right? His methods of study and logic he applied remain relevant today, etc. Okay. So he tries to, he doesn't involve in something called pilpul. Here we go. I love the way this works, right? Method of studying the Talmud through intense textual analysis and attempts to either explain conceptual differences between various halachic rulings, etc. I mean, look at the mental gymnastics that are required, etc. Okay, so anyway, I mean, there are all these footnotes here that you just have to touch on and you can get. That's one person, right? And here we mentioned the Rosh. There's the Rosh. The Rosh is 1250 to 1327, right? Best known for his abstract of Talmudic law, etc. Rabbeinu Asher, right? Rosh. So look at this. Here we go. Cologne, Holy Roman Empire, etc., etc. Look at this, right? And let's see. Oh, okay. That's all we have time for, and that's all I need to do with you for now. I'm going to stop the share, and
We have a minion.
that is one. And there's Lenny.
If
Hey, you made it. Yes,
if everybody's
yes,
here.
Yeah.
yeah. Let's do it. Would you join me for a Kaddish de Rabbanan? And I don't have my sitter, so I'm going to try. I'm going to stand for this. Okay. Okay, so one moment. I'm going to stop the recording.